9 spine-chilling Walmart horror tales revealed. Discover the sinister secrets lurking after dark. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sickly glow that danced across the empty aisles of Cedar Grove Walmart. Jess was alone, the persistent sound of her cash register echoing in the cavernous space like a heartbeat of dread. The clock ticked, time dragging in the oppressive quiet of the chilly Tuesday night, a stark contrast to the familiar comfort of her small-town life. Outside, the streets were shrouded in darkness, but inside, an unseen presence stirred. As she scanned a lone grocery item for the only remaining customer, a strange elderly man whose sunken eyes glinted unnaturally in the harsh light, Jess felt a shiver run down her spine. Something rustled in the cereal aisle. A flicker. Just her imagination, or so she thought. A fleeting chill whispered through the air, a taunting breeze that twisted the warmth of her body into cold panic. Each second stretched as she rang him up, the unsettling quiet suddenly feeling like a taunting void. The man lingered, his fingers brushing an old, dusty cereal box, his gaze lingering too long on her. Jess's heart raced. She forced herself to smile. "Have a good night, sir," she said, her voice more a fragile whisper than anything else. The man merely nodded, muttering something under his breath as he shuffled away, leaving an unsettling silence behind. As she scanned the next few patrons, a woman with a deranged look in her eyes and shaky hands clutching a pack of frozen dinners, a sense of dread settled in her gut. The woman left without so much as a thank you, disappearing into the night with awkward haste, and Jess felt the air thicken, charged with something sinister. Before she could shake off the horror creeping in, the overhead lights flickered violently. Each flashed through shadows that twisted the aisles into a surreal landscape. Jess clenched her fists, her pulse a drum in her ears, when suddenly, cans began to topple from a display nearby. What the hell? Was it just the wind? Or maybe a prank? But it wasn't just the cans, it was something deeper, something primal, as if the store itself was alive. The flickers of the monitors displayed distorted images, faces she thought she recognized morphing into something grotesque, shifting like shadows of her childhood monsters come to feast. The whispers, so faint, became clearer, taunting her, "Jess, you shouldn't have come here. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With a racing heart, Jess peered deeper into the aisles, feelings of paranoia pricking her skin. Each shadow felt alive, pulsating with unanswered questions as she fought to suppress the suffocating fear. Whispers poured from every corner, joined by snippets about disappearances, old folklore, a local businessman who seemed suddenly untrustworthy. What was real? What was just fear? Steeling herself, Jess decided to venture through the store after hours, looking for the comfort of truth woven into the fabric of Cedar Grove. Each corner she turned revealed relics of fear, the ghost of longing anchored in each aisle. And just as the lights flickered menacingly one last time, the shadows began to close in. A chill brushed against her ear with a soft, mocking whisper, "You shouldn't have come here, Jess." The store, once a source of safety, transformed before her eyes into a land of nightmares. What waited for her at the end? The air thick with danger, her breath quickening. Could she dare uncover the dark web weaving through this familiar facade? Jess's feet felt heavy as she navigated the dimly lit aisles, the hum of the fluorescent lights now a cacophony in her ears. She clutched the register key tightly, as if it were a lifeline tethering her to sanity. Each step echoed with the weight of the unknown, shadows morphing into figures flitting just out of her vision, mocking her with their absence. The cereal aisle loomed ahead, dark and ominous. The whispery voices coalesced, they felt closer, taunting her with half-formed sentences. "Find us," they urged, wrapping her in an icy embrace. Goosebumps peppered her arms, a prelude to dread. "Stop it, just stop," she muttered, forcing the words through trembling lips as she made her way to the end of the aisle. There it was, the cold, bright glow of the freezer section, the Yuletide brightness of its fluorescent lights. But the cold seemed to carry a weight, a phantasmal chill settling over her skin. She hesitated, then stepped forward. As she passed through the threshold of the frozen foods, each item inside blinked like an old, disjointed movie reel. The frozen dinners stared back with 1,000 dead eyes. Jess grit her teeth, heart racing. She needed answers, but being here felt like stepping into a nightmare, and then, just as that thought flitted through her mind, she froze. Water pooled beneath her feet. A shadow flickered in the periphery, and she turned slowly. A woman stood there, her face obscured by the darkness. The tension in the air thickened, wrapping around Jess like a serpent. "Are you lost?" The figure crooned, each syllable dripping with malice. Strong fingers wrapped around her throat in an instant, the woman's touch ice cold, too powerful to yank away. Jess struggled to breathe, the room narrowing with her frantic attempts for air. "Put me down," she gasped, clawing at the woman's hand with desperate urgency. "I can help you find what you're looking for," Jess, the woman hissed, the space around them beginning to twist and ripple, distorting the world between them. "But you must open your eyes first." With a surge of adrenaline, Jess managed to break free from those freezing fingers. She stumbled back, her mind racing. Discover what? What was she supposed to find? The whispers echoed, their cacophony sharpening her instincts. "Jess, Jess," they called, now a chorus of disembodied voices reverberating through the aisles. With renewed vigor, she sprinted toward the back of the store, the fluorescent lights flickering like the heartbeat of an unseen beast. Desperation clawed at her throat, matching the dread tugging at her gut. She skidded to a halt in front of the big storage doors, the sight of it pulsing like a living entity. The air around it crackled with presence, with memories intertwined in shadow and fear. Taking a deep breath, she reached for the handle, knowing fully well that stepping inside might spell doom or unveil unfathomable truths. Either way, she needed to face this darkness. As the door creaked open, a strong gust of wind pushed her inside, a forceful welcoming that knocked the breath out of her lungs. A single flickering bulb swung overhead, the eerie shadows playing against the wall as they twisted and turned, revealing the outlines of shapes long forgotten. She could hear faint cries, echoing against the walls, the hangers of lost souls urging her to come closer, and then she saw them, the remnants of a past left behind. What lay in wait? Were they lost stories or something far more deadly? The whispers crescendoed, and Jess, hanging onto the precipice of she couldn't even comprehend, took a step forward. "Jess," the shadows beckoned, "will you trust us?" That question hung heavy in the suffocating air. She had a choice. Would she dare to follow or flee? The darkness swallowed her whole as she stepped inside, every nerve screaming for her to turn back. The door slammed shut behind her with a resonating thud, sealing her within this realm of dread. The space felt larger than it should, shadows dancing mockingly along the walls, twisting, turning, manipulating light into forms that bore a striking resemblance to nightmares long forgotten. "Trust us," the whisper returned, insistent, as if the shadows had a will of their own. Her heart thundered a frantic rhythm, drowning out the whispers, and she took another step deeper into the storage room. Rows of cardboard boxes towered above her, looming like ancient monoliths trapped in their own decay. Coated in dust, the labels faded, remnants of once familiar products. A chill brushed her skin, and Jess felt as though eyes were upon her, scrutinizing her every movement. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the dimness, sending her heart into her throat. She staggered, instinctively reaching for the nearest box. It wobbled dangerously but didn't give way. Peering closer, she could make out a strange symbol etched across the cardboard, a spiral, twisting into an unfathomable abyss. "Find it, find the truth," the voice urged again, now wrapped in desperation. Jess swallowed hard. What truth? Was it here? Would it explain the horror winding itself through her mind? With shaking hands, Jess shoved aside the box and gasped. A tattered diary lay crumpled beneath. She stooped to retrieve it, the leather cover cold and brittle. The moment her fingers brushed against it, a jolt of energy surged through her body, flooding her with images, flashes of faces she didn't recognize, moments frozen in anguish. "No, no!" she cried, her voice barely a whisper against the chaos of whispers surrounding her. As if responding to her outburst, the room began to shift, the shadows pulsing in rhythm with her racing heart. "Open it," the voices chorused, a cacophony now spiraling into a single, haunting demand. With a sense of dreadful inevitability, Jess opened the diary. The pages were filled with frantic scrawls, ink smudged as if written in great haste. She flicked through, words melding into a story of torment, missing children, horrors obscured beneath layers of mundane normalcy, a connection to this very store and its hidden secrets. But it was one line that held her captive: "They're not just lost, they're waiting." She clenched her fists, a mixture of terror and bravery coursing through her. In her gut, she felt the truth creeping forth, acidic and unyielding. What are you waiting for?" she asked aloud, her voice faltering, the diary trembling in her grasp. Suddenly, the air thickened, and the shadows surged forward, coiling around her like serpents. The chilling words unfurled from the darkness. "For you, Jess, we've been waiting for you." Her breath quickened as she stumbled back. Was she part of this horror? Had she wandered into a fate already carved out for her? Run or embrace, the whispers echoed, weaving through her mind, wrapping tighter, urging her to decide. Everything felt heavy, alive with dread and expectancy. As the shadows closed in, Jess felt the weight of their demands, the looming threat of the truth lurking just beyond sight. "Open your eyes, Jess, will you trust us?" Her answer hovered in the dense air, the line between fear and revelation blurring fast. She felt trapped, longing to flee, clawing against the invisible hold around her throat. Yet a single flicker of hope ignited a buried desire for clarity, and then, deep in the darkness, a soft giggle sliced through the chaos, chilling her to her core. "Let us play," it chimed, a lullaby painted in malice. Frozen, Jess faced her choice: dive deeper or shatter the veil of terror. The weight of 1,000 decisions loomed overhead, pulsing with a life of its own. What lay just beyond this terrifying threshold? Would she break free, or would the shadows claim her soul? The giggle echoed again, reverberating through the storage room like a cruel taunt. Shadows twisted around her, coiling tighter, urging her to surrender. Jess's heartbeat thundered in her ears, drowning her thoughts in a chaotic tempo that mirrored the unsettling rhythm of the whispers. "Let us play," the voice sang softly, the lilting tone imbued with a sinister joy. It drifted and danced, snaking around her, both enchanting and terrifying. Who was that voice? A lost child? A lurking monster? Her stomach churned as she willed herself to tune into the solitude of the pages she clutched. "Stop it!" she shouted. The words clawed from her throat, raw and desperate. For a moment, the shadows hesitated, as if considering her plea. Silence wrapped around her like a thick fog, and in that stillness, she caught the scent of something sweet, almost floral, sitting at the periphery of her senses. It made her stomach twist further, but before she could breathe, a rush of shadows swirled back, surging toward her like water from a broken dam. Jess instinctively dropped the diary, and it fell open, flipping pages as if stirred by a ghostly wind. Ink flowed like blood, pooling at the edges. Then, the giggles returned, this time more frantic, more eager. Each chuckle felt like needle pricks against her skin. The air shimmered with an unseen energy, thick and nauseating. It pressed against her, weighing her down, shackling her will. Just as she began to sink into despair, a sharp image blazed through her mind: faces, eyes wide with fear. Children. She staggered back, stumbling against an ancient box. The imagery pulled at her, a dark web weaving her into its nightmare. "Let us play hide and seek," Jess, came the voice again, now distinctly coming from beside her. She whirled around, finding herself stared down by a young girl, no older than 8, her hair cascading around her thin shoulders like tendrils of shadow. The child's smile was wide, unnaturally so, with teeth that glinted like shards of glass in the dim light. Jess's gut twisted, every instinct screamed to run. But the child's gaze locked onto hers with an intensity that paralyzed her. "You're it." Before Jess could react, the little girl faded into the thick darkness, leaving only a flicker of laughter trailing behind her, faint yet hypnotic. "Find us." The whispers grew sharper, more urgent. The shadows condensed, forming a meandering path leading deeper into the room. Every nerve in Jess's body screamed against it, a siren's warning blaring through her conscious mind. With bated breath, she tightrope walked the line between dread and curiosity. "What are you waiting for?" she shot back into the murky void. The absence of a response sent a frigid chill clawing up her spine. The shadows pulsed in anticipation. "Find us or we'll play forever," echoed the chorus, wrapping around her like barbed wire. Jess glanced at the diary where it lay, beckoning her with images still flooding her vision. The anguish, the lost, the waiting. Plunging forward, she grabbed the diary, flipping through the pages frantically. Names danced on the yellowing paper: Emily, James, Sarah, a trail of lost memories. Not just lost, the voices purred, intertwining with the syncopated beat of her racing heart. "They're waiting." Panic rose within her as she realized the truth: her life had indeed intersected with their fate. Jess wasn't just a random girl stumbling into the dark. She was now part of the evening's grotesque game. "I will find you," she cried defiantly, though doubt gnawed at her resolve. Would she really? Or would she become just another name echoing within these walls? But the response was swift. A rush of cold air swept by, chilling her to her core. Jess took a step back, her breath hitching as the shadows began to reknit, patterns emerging that twisted into faces of the children, and then, the chant grew: "Find us, Jess, or stay." The weight of her decision pressed down, and with one last frantic glance at her surroundings, she turned and ran, the darkness swallowing her scream as she sprinted deeper into the storm of whispers. But as she fled, she couldn't shake the feeling that her choice had already been made. Her mind raced with dread. Would she face a truth darker than she could imagine, or would she uncover a sliver of hope buried within the horror? The room yawned open before her, revealing shadows that seemed to shimmer with sinister anticipation. What awaited her around that corner? Would the children reveal the truth, or would she join their ranks, waiting forevermore in the dark? The darkness swallowed her whole, a living void that welcomed her with twisted whispers. Jess stumbled forward, feet skidding over the cool, concrete floor, heart racing in her chest like a trapped animal. Each breath was heavy, laden with the lingering sweetness of decay. "Find us," it echoed, wrapping around her mind, pulling her deeper into its snowy grip. She hesitated, fingers trembling around the edges of the diary. The names haunted her still. What had happened to those children? The air grew thick, smothering her hope like a wet blanket, each shadow stretching out toward her, beckoning her to play. At that moment, a shrill giggle punctured the hollow silence. It skittered across her skin, igniting an instinctive urge to run. "Please," she whispered to no one, "just let me go." The response was a chorus of laughter, a cacophony of innocent mirth turned sinister. Desperate, Jess pressed on, the pages of the diary fluttering in her grasp. Suddenly, the light flickered. A flicker she might have welcomed if it weren't for the telltale chill that trickled down her spine. The faint overhead bulbs buzzed ominously, revealing glimpses of her surroundings, towering shelves cloaked in darkness, remnants of dust swirling like lost spirits. She turned right, darting down an aisle lined with old toys, their forgotten eyes seeming to track her every movement. Shadows danced in corners where the light struggled to reach, a menagerie of fear waiting for her slip. It was here, this space of light-hearted play, that darkness had taken root, twisting joy into horror. "Hide," the voice curled around her, sweet and syrupy. Jess could almost feel fingers brushing against her shoulders. She turned, spine stiff, only to be met with a doll lying on the ground, its porcelain face cracked and smeared with grime, eyes wide and accusing. Heart thundering louder, she rushed past, each step echoing against the hollow silence, but the farther she ventured, the more the shadows seemed to pulse, urging her to give in to the inevitable. "They're playing without you," the whispers taunted. "Forever is such a long time to wait. Stop." Jess shouted, but her voice seemed insignificant against the relentless chorus. Every footfall was heavy with dread, every breath tasted like fear. She stumbled again, slipping on something slick that glinted in the dim light. Her heart seized. It was a child's shoe, the small size too familiar, too real. Panic wrapped around her throat, choking her. "No, no, no," Jess breathed raggedly. Suddenly, the shadows shifted again, retreating and forming a horrifying tableau. There they were, children, dozens of them, peering from the edges of the dark. Their hollow eyes glimmered with hunger, faces twisted in smiles that made her stomach knot. "You found us," they sang, their voices overlapping, a spine-tingling symphony of mischief and despair. Jess's breath caught in her throat, a mix of confusion and dread. She gathered herself, forcing her brain to think. "What do you want from me?" she shouted, fighting against the pull of the shadows that licked at her feet. "Come play." The response washed over her, silky and terrible. She felt the thrum of their excitement, an undercurrent of fate she could not escape. "Play?" She laughed, though it was a broken sound. "I'm not playing anything with you." With renewed determination, she turned the corner of yet another aisle, racing toward the back, drained but desperate. But the giggles continued, staccato notes bouncing from wall to wall, murmurs filling her head. "Join us." Around another turn, the air shifted, and frost hung heavy. She was met by a wall of darkness, thick and foreboding. It seethed as if it had a life of its own. The path ahead was engulfed in shadows, and Jess knew she was running out of time. What awaited her beyond that consuming abyss? Was there escape, or was she already trapped, destined to join the chorus of lost souls forever seeking a game they could never win? The weight of the shadows bore down, teasing her resolve. Somewhere in that dark, the children's eyes were waiting for her next move. Jess faltered, teetering on the brink of that suffocating darkness. The whispers thickened, a breathy symphony of the children's voices merging into a single desperate call. "Come play, please." The space crackled with electricity, a storm building in the confines of her chest. Each heartbeat pulsed with an urgency that screamed at her to escape, yet the threatening shadows seemed to vibrate with energy, stretching out like fingers reaching for a long-lost friend. Raw fear coursed through her veins. Taking a deep breath that tasted of rust and dread, she forced one foot in front of the other, edging toward the dark. The light flickered again, casting fleeting images of warped faces and skeletal hands that seemed to beckon her deeper. A sudden realization clutched at her gut: the kids weren't just lost, they were trapped, and now they wanted her to be part of their eternal game. "Don't let them win," a tiny voice rasped from the abyss, making her freeze in her tracks. Who was it? What did it mean? Was one of the lost souls trying to warn her, or was that just another trick of the darkness? "Help us!" the chorus shouted, a surge of voices rising all around her. The sounds rattled the very core of her being, ridiculing her bravery. Jess squeezed her eyes shut, willing the chaos around her to fade. She had to stay focused. Somehow, she had to break free from the shadow's grip. In her mind, she could see flashes of light, children darting around, their laughter twisting into howls of despair. Suddenly, a hand, cold and small, gripped her ankle. Jess jolted, her heart slamming up into her throat. She looked down. A shadowy figure emerged from the dark, eyes glowing like embers. A child, filthy and hollow-cheeked, gazed up at her with despair. "You have to help us. If you don't play, you'll never leave." The sheer terror of her situation sent a shiver down her spine, yet something else began to flicker in the back of her mind, a sliver of defiance. "I want to play your game," she said, each word laced with renewed venom. They were just kids, cursed to live this nightmare. She wasn't going to become their next toy, their plaything. The child's eyes widened, a pleading look mixed with something darker, something more sinister. "But games are the only way out. Can you really resist?" And just like that, the others joined in, their voices merging into a single, relentless chant. "Join us, Jess." Forever and ever. Something in Jess snapped. "No!" she screamed, yanking her foot free from the child's grip. The laughter swelled, rising to a fever pitch, swirling around her like a tornado of madness. Finding a nearby shelf, Jess shoved against it, sending a cascade of old board games crashing to the floor. The noise echoed, tearing through the chaos, and for a moment, the laughter faltered. She seized the opportunity and pushed ahead, plunging herself into the consuming darkness. With a desperate lunge, she raced into the thick night. Behind her, the laughter mutated, turning into screams, an anguished wail of children losing something precious. Or perhaps realizing that their grip on her was slipping. As she penetrated deeper, the shadows surged, reforming around her, blocking her escape. Jess stumbled over unseen debris, panic clawing at her insides. "What is this place?" she gasped between ragged breaths. "Your new home," a voice hissed from right behind her, cold and vicious. She spun, chest heaving, searching for the source, but all she saw was the damp, swallowing dark. She could almost taste the encroaching dread, feel it wrapping tightly around her like a noose. "You'll play with us, Jess. What if I refuse?" she shot back, panic sparking into defiance. The darkness chuckled, a sound devoid of humanity. "You can't refuse. There are no choices here." A flicker of light caught her attention. Was it hope or false promise? Strengthening her resolve, she dashed toward it, heart hammering in her chest as echoes of dread chased after her. Straining, she pushed against the weight of darkness. But the voices rose again, more furious now. "You won't escape us. Not now, not ever." Threads of doubt woven between her thoughts threatened to unravel her courage. I have to get out." Just then, a piercing scream split through the air, freezing her in place. It wasn't just any scream. It was a cry filled with desperation. Was it from a child? Or was it one of the spirits she decrossed? Jess held her breath as she turned toward the source, every instinct screaming that she needed to keep going. But the shadows twisted, blocking her way. What lay beyond that flickering light? Would she find salvation, or become yet another lost soul among the shadows? She stood at the edge of the unknown, fear gripping her tighter than the darkness that threatened to consume. Would she dare take a step forward? Jess hesitated, pulse racing as terror clawed at her mind. The flickering light danced like a beacon in an ocean of despair, but doubt gnawed at her. How did one escape this twisted realm? The children's voices crescendoed, a cacophony that sent shivers along her spine. "Give in. It's easier no," she shouted, her voice shaking but resolute. She couldn't allow herself to cower. What did they know that she didn't? What lay beyond that light? Taking a deep breath, she took a tentative step forward, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. But before she could move, the shadows surged, a thick wall pressing against her. It roared with rage, the weight pulling her back, reminding her that this wasn't just a struggle against darkness, this was a war for her very soul. "Let go of me!" she screamed, pushing against the inky tendrils wrapping around her arms. With one fierce tug, she broke free, stumbling toward the light just as another scream pierced the air. "Help! Please, help me!" The voice was urgent, raw with panic. Jess spun, eyes darting toward its source, heart thrumming wildly in her chest. The shadows stirred, momentarily distracted by her movement. "Jess! No!" the whispering chorus cried, desperation fusing with a venomous edge. "Don't! Stay with us! Stay!" Ignoring them, she sprinted toward the light, her breath ragged, legs screaming in protest. She couldn't think, she had to act. But as she neared the brightness, it shimmered, flickering like a faulty bulb. Desperation clawed at her throat. "Who's calling for help?" she shouted into the void. She felt a sliver of sanity twist in her gut, urging her to turn back. The whole setup was a trap. Me. I'm over here. The voice was familiar, too familiar. It was her little brother, Timmy. She hadn't seen him in years, but why was he here? Timmy. She bolted, arms outstretched, eyes wide with fear and hope. I'm coming. No. Don't listen. The children wailed in unison, their voices twisting grotesquely. You'll regret it. We'll all regret it. In that moment, the light seemed to expand, almost inviting her closer. But shadows lashed out, snapping like whips, lashing at her heels. Timmy. She cried again. I want to leave you. A piercing scream erupted from within the shadows, followed by a chilling silence, punctured only by the distant echo of hollow laughter. Jess's heart dropped. No. It couldn't be. Panic surged. Timmy. Answer me. But the darkness surged forward, pressing in, suffocating her resolve. The gleam of light twisted further into a corridor of dread, winking and fading. She was trapped between the light and the dark, a choice between hope and despair. Could she trust that voice? With trembling hands, she seized her determination, pushing through the smothering shadows. I want to let you take him. Her scream seemed to resonate, reverberating through the dark layers surrounding her. The laughter turned into laughter, sharp and mocking. It's all a game, Jess. He's part of it now. A sickening dread unfurled within her. You lie. She shot back. No lies here, only truth and games. Suddenly, the images of children flashed around her, joy twisted into terror. Voices once pure had turned rotten. Were they all just pawns, trapped in a nightmare of their own making? Jess thrust her hand towards the light, ready to reach beyond the veil. She needed to find Timmy. I'll rescue you. But as she lunged, the darkness surged, launching a ferocious grip that seized her around the waist, pulling her back. White-hot fear ignited her senses. With a desperate scream, she bore down against the overwhelming force, clawing her way forward. I refuse to play your game. The ground shuddered beneath her, and the laughter erupted again, enraged. You don't have a choice. As she surged forward, something cold clutched her wrist. The laughter faded, leaving an echo of whispers. You should have listened. In an instant, she was yanked back into the void, the last fleeting view of the light dimming with an otherworldly cruelty. Help us, Jess. The children's voices transformed into a haunting lament as she fell deeper into the dark. Would she ever escape? Would she find Timmy, or was he lost forever? With every pulse of dread, the shadows whispered again, You're one of us now. And as the darkness enveloped her, she realized the truth, this nightmare had only just begun. What awaited her in the depths of despair? The lingering whispers echoed ominously, You'll never leave. Jess was dropped into an abyss of silence. The screams faded, replaced by an oppressive quiet that swallowed her. Cold seeped through the air, wrapping around her like a shroud. Her thoughts raced. Timmy was out there somewhere in this void. Timmy. She called again, her voice trembling. Was he even really here? An echo mocked her, spinning cruelly around the darkness. You should have listened. Her heart hammered in her chest as unease crept in. There were no lights, no landmarks. Just endless night. It felt as if the darkness itself was breathing, lunging toward her from all directions. Panicking, Jess sank to her knees, gasping for air. The shadows seemed to pulse around her, shrinking and swelling like a monstrous heartbeat. Get a grip, Jess. She urged herself, forcing thoughts of Timmy's face into her mind. How he used to smile, innocent and full of life. Focus. She whispered, blinded by fear. Think. She needed a plan. In this nightmare realm, one wrong step could seal her fate. Digging deep, she recalled the tales her grandmother used to tell about shadows, how they were born from fears, how they fed on despair. Maybe her fear was the key to escape. What if she could turn it against them? Suddenly, the whispers returned, tumbling through the dark like a wave. You can't escape the game, you're trapped. With each mournful cry, her heart clenched. No! She shouted, rising. I will not be part of your game. The words burst forth like a shield, the shadows recoiled momentarily, seething at her defiance. And then came the laughter, a cacophony of cackles that chilled her to the bone. You're one of us, Jess. Embrace it. No. I'm not. She yelled again, fury flooding her veins. But as the words left her mouth, fear twisted deeper inside like a vine, threatening to strangle her resolve. Help that voice again. Please, Jess. The sound shot through her like icy daggers. Timmy. She felt it, the weight of hope pushing her forward. The urge to find him overwhelmed everything else. Her hands clenched into fists, and she pressed forward through the shadows, willing them to retreat. Timmy. She screamed, voice echoing. She could feel his presence. It seemed to flicker in and out like that wretched light. Where are you? In the distance, a faint glow flickered, just like before. It wasn't just a figment of her imagination. She started running, driven by instinct and desperation. Over here. The voice was clearer now, familiar. Hurry. But the shadows reacted violently, surging around her once more, thick and heavy. They grabbed her, pushing and pulling, seeking to drag her down. You don't belong with them. They whispered, desperate notes woven through their hissing tones. Join us. It's easier. I refuse. Jess yelled, throwing them off with sheer will. She drew closer to that light, her breath coming in quick gusts. But as she got nearer, the brightness began to twist, turning into a strange, pulsing glow, a heartbeat of its own. Help! Came a shrill cry. No! Was that Timmy? She was almost there, but the shadows flared again, their grip tightening like a vice around her chest. Jess clawed at the air, her lungs burning. The light continued to pulse, a rhythmic, seductive call that made her heart race. Don't be afraid. Come to me. It's safe. Safe? Jess thought. But doubts crawled back in. What is this light? What if it's a trap? The cacophony of despair heightened as the darkness lashed out, forming a barrier. She couldn't falter now. I'm braver than you think. She shouted defiantly, flinging herself forward. In that fleeting moment, just before she reached the edge, the world twisted. The light imploded, shifting into a swirling void that pulled at the very fibers of her being. And then, silence as her thoughts swirled in chaos. Jess felt a familiar sensation. Cold fingers gripped her wrist, pulling her back. She gasped, heart racing, and her eyes widened in horror. Help us, Jess. It wasn't just Timmy's voice. More figures emerged from the shadows, blurred shapes beckoning with lifted hands. Children, their faces dim and sorrowful. We need you or we're all lost. A choice, but what choice? As Jess faltered, the shadows erupted with rage, slapping against her skin, ripping away her breath. The children's voices rose in unison, their cries carrying the weight of despair. Join us. You will never escape. Jess's heart pounded in her chest. She was running out of time. What twisted destiny awaited her in this realm of shadows and mirage? Would she save them or be lost like the rest? And somewhere in the abyss, something stirred, ready to make their inner darkness a reality. Jess's fear escalated as the shadows surrounding her writhed violently, a living mass of despair and hunger, gripping her heart with a chill more suffocating than the darkness itself. The children's faces were sunken, eyes hollow as they trembled before her, caught in a liminal space between hope and horror. Their tiny hands outstretched, fingers twitching with dread, reflected the darkness that bordered on madness. Help us, the whispering voices echoed, harmonizing in a mournful refrain. Each word slid into her ears like nails, searing her resolve. But it was Timmy. She could sense him, close yet so painfully out of reach. "No! You can't have him!" she cried, her voice a raw snarl against the tumult of shadows. As if sensing her fear, the darkness surged, swirling around her with malicious intent. The children twisted in agony, their faces contorting into expressions of despair. "We're not safe here. You have to make a choice." "Which choice?" she demanded, torn between the flickering hope that clung to her and the suffocating despair that threatened to pull her under. The shadows groaned, a horrible symphony of deep growls and shrill whispers, punctuating her thoughts with chaos. "Offer yourself, become part of us. It's easy. You'll never feel pain again." The offer dangled before her like a noose. Jess hesitated, but each moment she stood still felt like an eternity lost. With every heartbeat, she imagined Timmy's brave smile, his laughter echoing in her mind. Were they really asking her to forsake him? Jess' piercing cry cut through, starkly different from the murmurings. The voice was desperate, strained. "Please don't leave me, Timmy." She spun around, instinctively pushing the shadows away, feeling them claw at her skin. She stumbled forward, every movement agonizing yet vital. The grip of doom loomed behind her, threats swirling like a tempest, but there, in the chaos, the faintest flicker of light glimmered ahead. "Over here." The call came again, more urgent this time, slicing through the malevolence. Before she realized it, Jess was sprinting toward that fragile beacon, the shadows recoiling as if burned by her determination. The children's cries faded into a guttural cacophony, filled with rage and despair, far behind her. But as she reached for that light, it shifted, transforming into a vortex that pulsed angrily, a heartbeat of darkness waiting for her to surrender. "Stay back!" she yelled, fighting the magnetic pull of despair, willing her legs to move faster. The short breath strained against her chest, tight as the grips of the shadows that clawed at her limbs. Suddenly, a cold breeze swept through, enveloping her like fingers of ice. The vortex darkened, curling inward, spinning like a storm, echoing taunts and laughter. "You cannot escape yourself," it breathed, voice both alluring and dreadful. Jess shook her head, closing her eyes against the encroaching spiral. She remembered her grandmother's tales. The only way to conquer fear was to embrace it, not flee from it. "I am not afraid," she screamed, pushing herself beyond the threshold of fear. "I choose to fight." The darkness roared, a furious tempest that pushed back against her defiance. The swirling shadows began to thin, struggling to contain her spirit. Below the tumult, she caught sight of Timmy's face, vivid against the swirling black. Hope ignited within her, bright and fierce. "Hold on, Timmy. I'm coming," she shouted, summoning every ounce of strength she possessed. With an explosive surge, Jess lunged into the pulsing light, reaching desperately toward Timmy's hand, her fingers outstretched as reality twisted around her, and then the world imploded. She was falling again, spiraling into another abyss. But this one felt different, quieter, yet heavily charged with an unseen force. The weight of eyes watched her, hungry and expectant. Was it the same darkness, or had she dropped into a new realm, one where choices had darker consequences? Jess opened her mouth to scream, but the sound drowned in the silence. Something was waiting in the void, something that wanted her to choose again, this time, between her life and the fate of the lost children. What horrifying truth awaited her in this new darkness? Jess was suspended in a quiet void, darkness wrapping around her like a heavy shroud. She expected screams, the cries of children lost in the gloom, but there was silence. An unsettling tightness gripped her throat and weighed down her heart. Only the echoes of her racing pulse filled the air. And then she saw them again. The shadows. They emerged from nothingness, children's faces appearing, twisted in expressions of longing and despair. Hollow eyes pierced through the dark, searching for solace, or perhaps a way to claim Jess for themselves. "You've returned," they whispered in sync, voices dripping in bittersweet melody from their trembling lips. Jess gathered her strength, even as terror coiled around her heart like a constricting snake. I'm not afraid of you, she cried, though her voice faltered. I will find Timmy. Will you? The shadows laughed, a haunting echo that filled the abyss. You're already part of the game. You are one of us. Each word clawed at her resolve, but deep down, a flicker of hope ignited within her. No. I choose to fight. Jess shouted defiantly, refusing to give in. The faces around her flickered, uncertainty seeping into the shadows. She remembered her grandmother's tales, stories of bravery against shadows that fed on fear. I am not your pawn, she declared. I'll save the children. Suddenly, deep within the dark, a bright glow pulsed. Not just any light, but warmth, a shining beam drawing her in, battling against the encroaching darkness. Jess fought against the sinister tugging of despair, wading through the shadows that scratched at her skin like claws. Don't go toward the light. It will destroy you. The children wailed, their voices rising into a horrible crescendo, merging into a cacophony of anguish and manipulation. Stay with us, and play. Play? Play with you? Jess shook her head fiercely. You want to trap me just like you. I see it now. The children's faces twisted in horror, retreating slightly, and in that fraction of fear, Jess surged forward toward the light. It flickered with an empowering energy, cradling warmth that spread through her, igniting a courage she thought had been extinguished. I am here to rescue Timmy. The glow swelled, illuminating the darkness around her. Closer, she could hear a faint cry, seemingly emanating from the very heart of the light. Timmy. It was his voice, edged with terror but somehow hopeful, calling out to her. Jess. Help me. His plea struck her like a knife. I'm coming. She shouted, charging toward the light with everything she had left. With each step, the laughter of shadows intensified, but it only fueled her desperation to reach him. The closer she got, the more she felt the pull of the shadows behind her, grasping and gnashing in anger. You can't have him. You can't keep us apart. Panting heavily, Jess hurtled toward the brilliant pulse, beckoning her with unyielding force, and in one final, courageous leap, she dove toward the light. It enveloped her entirely, blinding, warm, and alive. For an instant it felt as if she were soaring through an expanse of calm sky, far removed from the horrors below. But she needed to find Timmy. Hold on. She called, her eyes strained against the intensity of the light. I'll pull you out. But just as quickly as the light consumed her, it shifted, and the shadows lashed out again, seizing Jess's limbs, pulling her back. You will join us. They shrieked, their voices woven together in haunting harmony, creating a vortex of despair that encircled Jess. Let me go. She cried, fighting against their grip. With sheer determination, she reached out, straining to find the shimmering glimmer of her brother in the roiling dark. Timmy. She could feel the warmth radiating from his little body, still anchored somewhere within the suffocating shadows. Jess. Help. That voice. Her heart broke at the sound. Stay strong. I'm coming. With a final surge of desperation, she grabbed onto the light, magnifying her intent, casting her fears aside. The shadows hissed and recoiled as if seared by her unwavering will. Join us. They screeched. You can't escape. But Jess felt her resolve hardening. I will not become one of you, she vowed. With the power of love for her brother fueling her, Jess pressed through the wall of darkest terror, piercing the veil between light and shadow. The darkness screamed, finally unraveling at the seams as she burst through. Timmy. In one electrifying moment, Jess felt something grasp her arm, familiar, warm, and with a wrenching pull, she tore Timmy from the depths of despair. Together, they stumbled back into the world, the store's lights blazing overhead like a resurrection. The stale air filled their lungs, the night gone and darkness dispelled as if it had never existed. Jess held Timmy tightly, both trembling and laughing in sheer disbelief. We made it. We made it. The joy bubbled through her, a light-hearted laugh that felt foreign yet right. That I in the distance, she heard distant, fading cries from the shadows, the whispers of what once tried to claim them receding into oblivion. Jess? Timmy's small voice pulled her back to the now. Did we really just escape? Jess nodded, her heart swelling with the shocking reality. Yes, and we'll never look back. Underneath that fluorescent glow, surrounded by comfort and safety, she felt relief wash over her soul. They stood there, together, heartbeats synchronizing in the newfound peace. And as the pale blue light of dawn started seeping through the store's front windows, she whispered to her brother, "Let us go home." Together, they walked toward the exit, leaving the echoes of darkness far behind, hand in hand, united against any shadows that might dare to return. If you've enjoyed this riveting journey, you need to subscribe now. Hit that subscribe button immediately so you don't miss any new exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to help us reach even more fans. Every like counts. We want to hear from you. Flood the comments section with your reactions, theories, and what you think about that ending. And remember to instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Show your support for the channel today.